This is the Pacific. For hundreds of years, Japan has been heavily involved in the events of this region, such as the Sino-Japanese Wars and Russo-Japanese Wars, to name a few. Tensions between America and Japan increased exponentially in the years prior to World War II and Pearl Harbor, and the result of the relationship between these two countries is the internment and hostility towards the Japanese people. In the 19th century, racism towards Japanese people centered around the idea of the Yellow Peril. This theory was created by German Emperor George Wilhelm in 1895. This was the fear of Asian immigrants, including Japanese, taking away jobs and standards of living, and eventually dominating Western culture. Yellow Peril is an example of the American historian John Dower's theory, stating that the vision of the menace from the East was always more racial rather than national. It was more concerned towards the idea that a certain appearance of people, rather than people from a specific country, would come to dominate the West. Another perspective comes from the historian Gina Marchetti, theorizing that the fear of Asians in general stems from the invasions of Genghis Khan and the Mongolian Empire. Additionally, there was great animosity from American working class towards immigrating workers that were willing to work for less wage and looked very different. Furthermore, there were 200,000 Japanese that immigrated to Hawaii, while 180,000 to the mainland United States. These people are categorized as Issei, which simply means Japanese immigrants from Japan or Hawaii. Regardless of the racial animosity towards the Issei, they contributed a great deal to the multiple railroad projects on the west coast of the US. By the end of these projects, 60% of the workforce consisted of Japanese Americans. In spite of all the contributions, not only was the public opinion towards Asians poor, but so was foreign policy. From the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, this proved to be an action of discrimination towards the immigrants from Asia. Although the act wasn't directed towards the Japanese, it was proof for the stereotypical racist view towards the yellow people. Following this act was the 1924 Immigration Act, which banned all Japanese people from immigrating into the United States. Additionally, the rising military power of the Japanese in the East sparked further control and surveillance in the Japanese-heavy areas such as California and Hawaii.
When did you move to the U.S.?
In 1924, my wife and I moved to Washington. We lived near the city, but we had to stay in a cabin off into the more rural area.
And how were the conditions like?
It was very dirty and uncomfortable. We didn't expect to move to the States and have to live in somewhere like this. No electricity or water. I don't know, but I feel like we're being treated quite differently, especially since we're immigrants. We definitely have certain disadvantages living here, such as certain privileges that the Americans have that we don't have. By we, I'm referring to the Japanese American citizens.
Do you feel that the Japanese have disadvantages of living in the United States?
Yes, I do feel that way. We came here to find new job opportunities, since Japan is such a small country for our growing population. But at the same time, it's clear that we're viewed as these aliens that are here to steal people's work. This isn't the case. We're here because we want to positively contribute to our new home with the job opportunities that are presented to us. Over the next few decades leading up to the events of World War II, the Japanese were relatively dormant. The antagonistic views toward them started to fade, as they were actually contributing something to the country's development. Although there was, to some degree, racism towards the Japanese, people started to get used to them, until the events of Pearl Harbor. This attack solidified the American views on any person of Japanese descent.
Santa Anita Racetrack, for example, suddenly became a community of about 16,000.
Internment was a very popular option amongst the Americans. However, there are many, mainly Hawaiian politicians, who oppose this idea. One Hawaiian politician said, "It would seem that convicting people of disloyalty to our country without having specific evidence against them is too foreign to our way of life and too close akin to the kind of government we are fighting." We must realize, as Henry Emerson Fosdick so wisely said, liberty is always dangerous, but it is the safest thing we have. Over 120,000 Japanese were relocated into concentration camps, with around two-thirds of them being American citizens. However, American citizenship, according to many, didn't determine their loyalty to the country. For example, General Dewitt said, "A Jap's a Jap. There is no way to determine their loyalty."
Tell me about your childhood.
Dime sobre tu infancia.
Tenía 12 años en el tiempo y vivió con mis padres y dos hermanos en Perú. Esa noche, dos oficiales llegaron a la casa y se llevaron a mi padre. Mi padre poseía una pequeña tienda de la General. Fue detenido porque era parte de la prosperidad comunidad japonesa en Perú. Mi madre dijo que él no había hecho nada malo, pero no le escuchan. Mi padre fue entre los 2.900 latinoamericanos de origen japonés que fueron deportados por la fuerza a campos de concentración en los Estados Unidos. Un mes después fue detenido mi padre y me envió una carta porque era mi cumpleaños. Recuerda que el escrito que había sido llevado a Panamá, desde donde planeaba enviarlos a los Estados Unidos. 6 meses más tarde, mi madre llevó a nosotros a los Estados Unidos para buscar a nuestro padre. Cuando llegamos a Nueva Orleans, después de un viaje de un mes, ellos confiscaron nuestros pasaportes y luego nos enviaron por tren al campo de Crystal City. Tanto como 400,000 personas fueron al campo en Texas por la inmigración. La mayoría de los detenidos eran de ascendencia japonesa, aunque algunos inmigrantes alemanes y italianos también eran allá. Fue en una ciudad de cristal. Cuando nosotros reunamos con nuestro padre, nosotros estaba sorprendido que él había perdido tanto peso. Para los próximos 4 años, nuestra familia vivió en las barracas en el campo. Recuerdo que la época no era especialmente traumática para mí. Siendo un niño en el tiempo, no tuve preocupaciones y tenía muchos amigos. Se podía llamar un campo de concentración, porque estábamos rodeados de cercas de alambre de pulas y guardias con armas de fuego. No podíamos salir, aunque nos estaban libres para movernos en el interior. Mis padres eran muy amables acerca de la situación porque se vieron obligados a venir a los Estados Unidos. No tenían ninguna opción.
The internment of Japanese Americans and Japanese Canadians was sparked by the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. Causing chaos and havoc across the country, Pearl Harbor's effect on America was devastating. However, focus quickly shifted to the instigators. Who did it? The FBI began to follow community leaders with strong ties. The government soon imposed strict curfews and raided Japanese homes for contraband, anything that resembled a connection to the Japanese homeland. Within 2 months, President Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, authorizing the War Relocation Authority to force 120,000 Japanese and their American-born children into relocation camps. Akashi Rakuzan was a clerk, working in the city of Los Angeles. He worked day and night at the office, trying to scrape through enough money to support his wife and their 2 children. Akashi was born and raised in central LA, under the supervision of his Japanese-born immigrant parents. When you heard news of Pearl Harbor, how did you react? Did you realize the potential effects on the Japanese community?
Yes. When I watched the news on TV, I was horrified. The first emotion that came to mind was a rush of sadness and shock. It was a tragedy. But when the sadness settled, it quickly transformed into a feeling of fear, dread. There was going to be widespread anger and hostility, and it was going to be towards us, the Japanese.
Knowing that you and your family would be the target for the eventual animosity, did you think about leaving the country? How did you react?
Many Japanese families I knew voluntarily left the West Coast. They didn't want to take any risks. But for us, it was different. My parents were first-generation immigrants. I grew up here, in California. Same goes for my wife and my children. We felt like Americans, and we were Americans. We didn't want to abandon life here. All the work we had done, our parents had done, to settle here. This is our home.
What resulted?
We were forced to give up the community we lived in and our home. They reallocated us to Utah. We lived in Topaz, one of the WRA relocation centers. Some others were forced to go to Colorado, Arizona. Officially, the U.S. proclaimed it was for our safety, but in reality, we were the enemies.
How were the conditions of the camp?
Terrible. Horrible. We were living in tar paper covered barracks of simple frame construction without plumbing or cooking facilities of any kind. We were given next to no food. Poor living conditions were something our family could have pushed through though. But what really hurt us was how the camp tore the family apart. I was reduced to the role of cleaning the barracks. I was given only $10 per day. It was such a hit to my dignity, my pride. All the schooling my parents had paid for, the education I received, was put to waste. For me to rot away, I could no longer see eye to eye with my wife and my children. I couldn't face them. How could my children grow up seeing dad like this? But it was even worse for my wife. Everyone was crowded into barrack communities, like barrack commodes. We were herded like sheep. There was no room for privacy. She was left exposed whenever she dressed, and she would come to me weeping. Seeing her like that, it was hard.
And the children?
We didn't tell them about the whole situation. How were we going to what was essentially a prison camp? We told them we were just moving to a village where the whole Japanese community would live together, and we tried to hide the pain we were feeling at the time. We didn't want the experience to leave any scars in their hearts. We did the best that we could.
Could they continue their education? Were they still going to school?
Well, they set up education facilities. Luckily, our children could still go through some form of schooling, whatever it was worth, but it hurt. Some days they would come back home singing the national anthem in pure joy. The kids were very patriotic. I mean, I was happy for their joy and happiness, but angry inside.
The internment of Japanese Americans, Japanese Canadians, and Japanese Latin Americans serve as one of the more severe social consequences of World War II. Needless and senseless racism towards Japanese caused long-term traumatic effects in the lives of many households. But eventually, the internment camps will fade into the flow of history, concealed under the shadow of the more severe and memorable Nazi concentration camps. But the mark it had on its victims will remain for generations and generations.